My phone buzzed right at 9:47 p.m., that familiar FaceTime chime lighting up the room. It was Lauren, my wife of 8 years, calling me. I could already hear loud, shrill laughter spilling through the speaker before I even tapped the screen to answer. Before I go any further, let me ask one small favor. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe, hit like, leave a comment, and smash that hype button so this channel can keep growing and more people can find these wild Reddit stories. When the call connected, Lauren's face filled the screen. Her cheeks were flushed from wine, her blonde hair somehow still perfect, even though she claimed she was out for a casual girls' night. Behind her, I spotted the usual lineup: Amanda, Stephanie, and Nicole, packed around one of those tall tables at Vano's, that overpriced wine bar downtown where they gathered every Thursday like it was a weekly ritual. "Hey, Mark," Lauren said, smiling wide. "Looks like you're all having a good time," I said, leaning back into my recliner. Truth was, the house felt way too big without her there. And lately, she wasn't home much anymore. "Oh, we're having an amazing time." Amanda jumped in, leaning into the frame. Her dark hair was pulled back tight in that severe bun she always wore, the kind that made her look like she was permanently ready to scold someone. "Actually, Mark, we've been talking about you." The way she said that sent a knot straight to my stomach. There was something sharp in her smile, predatory, almost, like sharks circling something wounded. "All good things, I hope," I said, keeping my tone light on purpose. Stephanie slid into view next, her cheeks red from wine and excitement. "Well, I guess that depends on how you look at it," she giggled. Then Nicole shoved her way into the shot, holding her phone up like she was filming content. These days, everything in her life was material for her mommy blog. "Mark," she said, grinning, "we've been having some really deep girl talk tonight." Lauren straightened up, her voice shifting into that cold, polished tone she used at her HR job when she fired people. "And we've come to a unanimous decision." My chest tightened. "It's time for us to get divorced." The words landed like a punch. I won't lie, I'd felt something like this coming for months. What I hadn't expected was the audience. The performance. All four of them smiling at me through the screen like they'd just delivered the punchline to the cruelest joke imaginable. "We've decided," Amanda repeated, putting extra weight on the word. "Lauren deserves so much better than what she's getting at home." "You're holding her back, Mark," Stephanie added, nodding like she was offering wisdom instead of casually blowing up a marriage over a bottle of Pinot Grigio. I didn't respond right away. I let the silence hang there, thick and uncomfortable. They were clearly waiting for me to crack, to beg, to argue, to give them the meltdown they wanted. Instead, my mind drifted to the credit card statements I'd been quietly collecting. The late nights, the new clothes, the way Lauren had started dressing up, not for me, but for someone else. "So," I said calmly, "none of you are bothered by the fact that she's been sleeping with your husbands?" The laughter stopped instantly. 4 faces froze on my screen, smug grins melting into confusion, and then into something closer to fear. "What did you just say?" Amanda snapped, all warmth gone. "You heard me," I replied, standing up and stepping closer to the camera. "Lauren, should I tell them about Chris? Or Jason? Or maybe we start with the pictures I found on your phone?" Lauren's face drained of color. "Mark, don't be ridiculous. You're just trying to." "Am I?" I cut her off. I turned back to the screen. "Amanda, when's the last time you checked the GPS history on Chris's Tesla?" "Stephanie, does Jason still say he's working late on Tuesdays and Fridays?" The silence on their end was deafening. I watched their eyes dart toward each other, doubt slowly creeping in. "Nice try, Mark," Nicole finally said, but her voice didn't sound convincing anymore. "You're just deflecting." "Am I?" I said again, smiling for the first time all night. "Guess we'll find out soon enough. Enjoy the rest of girls' night, ladies. Something tells me it might be your last one together." I ended the call and placed my phone on the coffee table. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. Not from sadness either. For the first time in months, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Power. I walked into my home office and pulled out the folder I'd been quietly putting together for weeks. Inside were bank statements showing hotel charges I'd never been to. Credit card receipts from restaurants Lauren claimed were work dinners, even though the totals clearly said 2 people. Screenshots of text messages I'd recovered from her old phone before she accidentally dropped it and replaced it. And then there were the photos, the ones she thought she'd deleted. The ones that automatically backed up to our shared cloud account. Lauren with Chris in his Tesla. Lauren with Jason at that rundown motel off Route 9. Lauren with men I didn't even recognize. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was collecting married men like trophies, and her best friends' husbands were apparently her favorites. Originally, I planned to confront her privately, maybe suggest counseling, maybe just file for divorce quietly and move on. But she'd chosen to humiliate me in public, turning our marriage, and theirs, into entertainment. Fine. If Lauren wanted a public divorce, I'd make sure it was one she'd never forget. I opened my laptop and started typing. If she thought this was a game, she was about to learn I'd been playing chess while she was busy playing checkers. The first email went to Mike Rodriguez, my best friend and the owner of CrossFit Iron Valley, where I worked out every morning. Mike knew everyone in town, and more importantly, he had a mouth the size of the Hudson River when it came to gossip. The second email went to Mrs. Keller, our 73-year-old neighbor who knew everybody's business and loved sharing it. She'd been hinting about Lauren's visitors for weeks. The third email mattered most. It went to a private investigator I'd found online, a former cop named Paul Alvarez who specialized in domestic cases. I'd hesitated before, but Lauren had just forced my hand. By the time I went to bed, everything was already moving. Lauren stumbled home around 2 a.m., reeking of wine and guilt. She tried to crawl into bed beside me, but I was already up and dressed. Going somewhere, she slurred. Gym, I said. Early workout. Mark, about tonight. Don't, I said, cutting her off. We'll talk when you're sober. I paused, then added. And Lauren, you might want to call Chris and Jason. Tell them they might want to sit down with their wives and have an honest conversation before somebody else does it for them. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out and left her standing there in our bedroom, staring after me while confusion and the first real flicker of fear started to show on her face. The game was officially on. Mike was already waiting for me in the gym parking lot at 5:30 that morning. He had 2 coffees in his hands and a look on his face like he hadn't slept a minute. You look like hell, he said, passing me one of the cups. I feel worse, I admitted. Did you read my email? Yeah, he said slowly. I read it. Jesus, Mark, are you sure you want to do this? Instead of answering, I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the pictures. It was Lauren and Chris Alvarez, Amanda's husband, locked in a passionate embrace outside the Marriott downtown. The timestamp showed it had been taken last Tuesday night, the exact same evening Amanda had posted on Facebook about enjoying a quiet night in with her amazing husband. Mike's jaw tightened. That son of a... I've known Chris since high school. Amanda too, for that matter. There's more, I said, swiping through the evidence I'd collected. Jason Reed, Stephanie's husband. 3 different motels over the past 2 months alone. And those were just the ones I could prove without digging deeper. So what do you want me to do? Mike asked. Nothing illegal, I said quickly. I just want people to know what kind of woman they've been defending, starting with the morning crowd here. Mike nodded, understanding immediately. The 6 a.m. CrossFit class was infamous for spreading gossip faster than wildfire. By lunchtime, half the town would know Mark Holloway's wife had been caught cheating, and not just once. What about the wives? Mike asked carefully. Amanda and Stephanie are going to be crushed when this comes out. I thought back to their smug smiles from the night before. The laughter. The way they helped my wife ambush and humiliate me on camera. They made their choice, I said flatly. They decided to step into my marriage. Now they get to live with the fallout. We worked out mostly in silence after that, but I could practically see Mike's brain turning. He was already mapping out who would hear what, and in what order. It was one of the reasons I trusted him. When Mike had your back, he didn't do things halfway. After the workout, I drove straight to my construction site. I'd been a site supervisor at Brennan Construction for 5 years, managing everything from residential builds to commercial projects. It was solid, honest work, and it provided a level of stability Lauren clearly took for granted. The crew was already setting up when I arrived. These were good men, hardworking guys who'd been with the company for years. They knew me, trusted me, and most of them already had a sense that something was off. Boss, Tommy Chun, our lead electrician, called out. You look like you got hit by a truck. Worse, I said. I got hit by reality. During the morning briefing, I found myself telling them about the night before. Not the graphic details, just the basics. My wife wanted a divorce. Her friends had blindsided me, and I'd learned some things I couldn't ignore. No way. Mike Sullivan, our plumber, said. Lauren's been stepping out. More than stepping, I replied. She's been running marathons. The guys exchanged looks. In a town this size, word moved fast, especially among blue-collar workers. These men drank at the same bars, shopped at the same stores, and crossed paths with everyone else in town on a regular basis. So what are you going to do? Frank Kowalski, our carpenter, asked. I'm giving her exactly what she asked for, I said. A divorce. I'm just making sure everyone understands why. By lunchtime, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The first message was from Paul Alvarez, the private investigator. Got your email. Can meet this afternoon. Have some preliminary info you'll want to see. The second came from Mrs. Keller. Mark, dear, I think we should talk. I've been keeping notes on your wife's visitors, and you're going to want to see them. The third message came from a number I didn't recognize. This is Amanda Alvarez. We need to talk. Now. I smiled and deleted that one without replying. Amanda could wait. I met Paul at a diner on the far side of town, somewhere I was unlikely to run into anyone I knew. He looked exactly like I'd imagined. Mid-50s, gray hair, and a weathered face shaped by years of dealing with people at their worst. I started digging as soon as you reached out, he said, sliding a manila folder across the table. Your wife isn't very careful about hiding what she's doing. Inside were more photos, more receipts, more proof of Lauren's affairs. But there was also something I hadn't expected, a detailed timeline showing this had been going on for over a year, not just the few months I'd suspected. She's got a type, Paul said. Married men. Successful ones. Men with something to lose. I looked up. What do you mean? It's not just about sex, he explained. It's about control. Power. She likes the risk, knowing she can blow up their lives whenever she wants. He pointed to the timeline. She never stays with one guy too long. A few months at most. She moves on before they get too attached, but only after she's gathered enough leverage to destroy them if they try to walk away first. I stared down at the photos, seeing my wife in a way I never had before. This wasn't just infidelity. It was predatory. There's more, Paul said. I checked into her job, too. She's been involved with subordinates. If her company finds out, she's done. Sexual harassment. Abuse of power. All of it. How do you know all this? I asked. I've got contacts, he said simply. And your wife made enemies. People who'd love to see her face consequences. I paid Paul and drove home with the folder sitting heavy on my passenger seat. My phone kept lighting up, more messages from Amanda, several from Stephanie, and one from Nicole asking if we could talk things out like adults. The only message I answered was from Mike. Word spreading. Amanda showed up at the gym asking for you. She's furious. Good, I texted back. Let her sit with it. When I got home, Lauren was waiting for me in the kitchen. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was anger burning behind them. What did you do? She demanded. I told the truth, I said calmly. Isn't that what you wanted? Honesty in our marriage? You had no right, she snapped. I had every right. I cut in. You made our marriage public last night, I told her. You dragged your friends into our private business. So now everyone gets the full story. Mark, please, Lauren said, her voice cracking. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can. No, I said firmly, cutting her off as I opened my briefcase and pulled out the divorce papers I'd printed earlier that afternoon. You were right about one thing last night. It is time for us to get divorced. I've already filed. The color drained from her face. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious, I said. Then I added, and Lauren, you should probably call Chris and Jason. Their wives are going to find out very soon, and it'll be a lot better coming from you. How could you do this to me? She asked, her voice trembling. I looked at her, really looked at her, knowing it would likely be one of the last times I ever did. She was still beautiful. Still, on the surface, the same woman I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I didn't do this to you, I said quietly. You did this to yourself. I just made sure everyone could finally see it. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. Moments later, I heard her car start and peel out of the driveway, probably headed straight to one of her lovers for comfort. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, sat down, and waited. The real chaos would start tomorrow. And it did. My phone started ringing at exactly 6 a.m. Amanda Alvarez, for the 10th time. I finally answered on the 11th ring. You bastard, She spat without any greeting. How could you do this to me? Good morning to you too, Amanda, I said calmly. How's Chris doing today? Still claiming he was working late last Tuesday? The silence on the other end stretched on for nearly 30 seconds. When she finally spoke again, her voice was shaking. I don't believe you. Check his phone, I suggested. Look at his credit card statements. Pull the GPS history from his Tesla. Or better yet, ask him straight up. Chris isn't nearly as good at lying as he thinks he is. Even if, she started, then corrected herself. Even if there's some truth to this, you had no right to destroy my marriage. I didn't destroy your marriage, I replied evenly. Your husband and my wife did that. I just made sure you weren't kept in the dark. We were trying to help Lauren, Amanda shot back. She was miserable with you. She was miserable because she was living a lie, I snapped. And you helped her do it. You sat there last night and laughed while she humiliated me, without ever asking why she really wanted out. Amanda was crying now. What am I supposed to do? I have kids, Mark. I have a life with Chris. That's something you'll have to figure out with your husband, I said. But next time you decide to involve yourself in someone else's marriage, make sure you actually understand what's going on first. I hung up. Almost immediately, Stephanie Reed called. Mark, please tell me this isn't true, she sobbed. Which part? I asked. The part where your husband's been sleeping with my wife, or the part where you helped her ambush me last night? Jason says nothing happened, Stephanie cried. He says you're lying, that you're just trying to hurt us because you're angry. Stephanie, I have photos. I have hotel receipts. I have text messages, I said. And your husband isn't just cheating, he's been bragging about it to his gym buddies. That last part wasn't entirely true, but it did exactly what I needed it to do. Stephanie's sobbing turned guttural, almost animal-like. Why are you doing this to us? You did this to yourselves, I replied. You decided to play judge and jury with my marriage. Actions have consequences, Stephanie. You're about to learn that the hard way. I hung up and headed to the gym. Mike was already there, waiting with a grim smile. It's like a bomb went off, he said. Amanda showed up at opening and started screaming at Chris in the parking lot. Half the morning class got a free show. What did Chris say? I asked. Not much, Mike chuckled. Hard to talk when your wife's got her hands around your throat. We worked out while Mike filled me in on everything that had gone down. Apparently, Amanda confronted Chris the night before after my call. He denied it at first, but the moment she threatened to check his phone, he folded. Not just about Lauren, Mike added. Turns out she wasn't even his first affair. Amanda uncovered at least 2 others. Jesus, I muttered. And it gets better, Mike continued. Stephanie showed up about an hour after Amanda left. She found Jason's burner phone hidden in his toolbox. I didn't bother asking what was on it. Photos. Videos, Mike said. Guy liked documenting everything. Stephanie saw him with Lauren and 3 other women. For a brief second, I felt something that might have been sympathy for Stephanie and Amanda. They'd been lied to just like I had, maybe even worse. Then I remembered their faces on that FaceTime call. The laughter, the smug satisfaction. The sympathy disappeared. What about Nicole? I asked. Haven't seen her yet, Mike said. But she's been calling around trying to do damage control. She's worried about how this affects her brand. Nicole's brand was her mommy blog, where she sold the image of being the perfect wife and mother living a flawless suburban life. Multiple marriages imploding in a cheating scandal didn't exactly fit that narrative. After the gym, I headed to the construction site. The crew was already buzzing. Apparently, Tommy Chin's wife was friends with Stephanie Reed, and the story had ripped through their social circle overnight. Boss, Mike Sullivan called out as I walked up. You hear about Jason Reed? What about him? Stephanie kicked him out last night. He's staying at the Motel 6 on Route 9, the same place he was taking your wife, according to the rumors. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jason was now living in the same cheap motel where he'd been cheating. And Chris Alvarez? I asked. Amanda's got him sleeping in the guest room while she decides whether to file for divorce, Mike said. She's already called a lawyer. I spent the rest of the morning reviewing blueprints and coordinating with subcontractors, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Lauren. She hadn't come home the night before. She wasn't answering my calls or texts. Not that I wanted to talk to her, but there were practical things we needed to address. The house, our joint accounts, the divorce itself. Around lunchtime, I finally got my answer. Mrs. Keller called. Mark, dear, she said, lowering her voice. I thought you should know. Your wife stopped by this morning with a moving truck. She took quite a bit. Clothes, furniture, and some of your electronics. Did she say where she was going? She said something about crashing with a friend until she could find her own place, Mrs. Keller added. Though between you and me, I don't think she has many friends left after yesterday. That afternoon, I decided subtlety was done. It was time to be more direct. I drove straight to Lauren's office at Brennan Insurance, the mid-sized firm where she'd climbed her way up to HR director over the past 5 years. When I walked in, the receptionist, Emily, a young woman I'd met at a few company parties, immediately stiffened. Hi, Mr. Holloway, she said nervously. Are you here to see Lauren? Is she in? I asked. Well, yes, Emily replied, hesitating. But she left instructions that she wasn't available for visitors today. I'm not a visitor, I said calmly. I'm her husband, and we have some urgent things to discuss. Emily looked caught between company policy and basic human decency. Before she could make a decision, Lauren stepped out from behind the reception desk hallway. Mark, she said coldly, what are you doing here? We need to talk, I replied. Privately. She glanced around the reception area, clearly aware that several coworkers were pretending not to listen while absolutely listening. Fine, she said tightly. My office. 5 minutes. I followed her down the hallway into her corner office, the same one I'd helped her decorate when she got the promotion 2 years earlier. Back then, it felt like a shared victory. Now it felt like hostile ground. You've done enough damage, she snapped as soon as the door shut. Amanda and Stephanie won't speak to me. Nicole's acting like I don't exist. Are you happy now? Thrilled, I said dryly. Though I do have to ask, where exactly did you sleep last night? Not with Chris, I hope. From what I hear, Amanda's keeping him on a pretty tight leash. Her face flushed. That's none of your business. Actually, it is, I said evenly. We're still married, and we still have joint assets. I need to know where you're staying so I can have papers served. I'm staying with a friend. Which friend? I asked, because you seem to be running out of those pretty fast. She didn't answer, but her silence told me everything I needed to know. Her female friendships were burned to the ground, and the men she'd relied on were all dealing with their own imploding homes. There's something else we need to talk about, I said, pulling out the folder Paul Alvarez had given me. Your job. What about it? She asked sharply. Well, I said, opening the folder. Your company has some very clear policies about supervisors having relationships with subordinates. Policies you've been violating for quite a while. The color drained from her face. You wouldn't, she whispered. I wouldn't what? I said. Tell the truth? Report illegal behavior? Lauren, you've been sexually harassing your employees. That's not just a fireable offense, it's potentially criminal. Those relationships were consensual, she shot back. Were they? I asked. Because I have statements from 3 different men who say they felt pressured to sleep with you to protect their jobs. Men who were afraid to report you because you controlled their employment. That part was a stretch. Paul had mentioned discomfort and complaints, not signed statements. But Lauren didn't know that. You're bluffing, she said weakly. Am I? I replied. Want to find out. She sank into her chair, the fight draining out of her. For the first time since all of this started, she looked truly afraid. What do you want? She whispered. I want you to sign the divorce papers without contesting a single thing, I said. I want you out of our house for good. And I want you to stay away from Chris Alvarez, Jason Reed, and anyone else's husband. And if I do all that, she asked quietly, you'll stay quiet about the other thing? I pretended to think it over. Maybe, I said. That depends on how cooperative you are. It was a lie. I had no intention of letting her off that easily, but she needed to believe she still had some leverage. I need time, she said. You have until tomorrow morning, I replied. After that, I start making phone calls. I left her sitting there, smaller and more defeated than I'd ever seen her. It should have felt like a win. Instead, it just felt hollow. The woman I married 8 years ago wouldn't have recognized the person behind that desk. The next evening, I was in my backyard grilling burgers when the doorbell rang. Through the front window, I saw 3 figures on my porch. Nicole, Amanda, Stephanie. The group was back together, but this time, none of them looked like they were having fun. I opened the door with a beer in my hand and a smile on my face. Ladies, I said, what a pleasant surprise. You here for the barbecue? Cut it out, Mark, Nicole snapped. She looked exhausted, Her normally polished mommy blogger image completely unraveled. "We need to talk." "About what?" I asked. "About the fact that you destroyed 3 marriages in 2 days," Amanda said. Her eyes were swollen and red, and she was wearing the same clothes as the day before. "About how you're ruining innocent people's lives." "Innocent?" I laughed. "That's a bold word coming from the 3 of you. Can we come in?" Stephanie asked softly. She looked like she'd aged a decade since Tuesday night. "I don't know," I said. "Are you planning to ambush me again? Because last time you all teamed up on me, it didn't exactly end well for anyone." "Please," Stephanie said. "We just want to understand what happened." I stepped aside and let them into the living room. They sat on my couch, the same couch I'd been on when they delivered their little ultimatum 2 nights earlier, and looked at me like I owed them answers. I sank into my recliner. "All right," I said. "What can I do for you?" "You can explain why you felt the need to blow up our families," Amanda said. "I didn't blow up anything," I replied. "I exposed what was already broken." "That's not the same thing," Nicole protested. "You could have handled this privately. You could have talked to us, warned us. Like you talked to me before deciding my marriage was over?" I shot back. "Like you warned me before staging that little intervention on Tuesday night." They exchanged looks. For the first time since I'd known them, they actually looked ashamed. "That was different," Amanda muttered. "How?" I demanded. "How was it different?" "We were trying to help Lauren," Stephanie said quietly. "She was miserable. She was miserable because she was living a lie." I snapped, finally losing my grip on calm. "She was miserable because she was cheating on me with your husbands and feeling guilty about it. And instead of pushing her to come clean, or get help, or do literally anything constructive," I continued, "you helped her turn it all on me. You helped her convince herself I was the problem." "We didn't know," Nicole whispered. "You didn't want to know," I corrected. "You wanted to play the role of supportive friends, the wise ones, the ones who had life all figured out. You wanted to feel superior to the clueless husband who supposedly couldn't keep his wife happy." "That's not fair," Amanda said, but there was no real strength behind it. "Isn't it?" I asked. "Tell me something, Amanda. When was the last time Chris came home late? When was the last time he dodged your questions or got vague about where he'd been? Did you ever stop to question it? Or did you just accept whatever explanation was easiest?" Amanda's face collapsed. I thought he was just stressed from work." "And Stephanie," I said, turning to her, "all those business trips Jason took, all those weekend conferences, did you ever actually check if any of them were real?" Stephanie shook her head, tears running freely now. "And Nicole," I said last, meeting her eyes, "Miss Perfect Life. Miss Everything's Amazing. When was the last time you truly looked at your friends' marriages instead of using them as background props for your blog?" Nicole had gone pale. "My blog has nothing to do with this, doesn't it?" I asked. "How many posts have you written about girls' night? About female friendship? About standing by each other no matter what? Did you ever stop to think about what you were actually supporting?" "We were supporting our friend," Amanda said weakly. "No," I said. "You were supporting a lie. You enabled someone who was tearing apart multiple families, including her own. And when I tried to tell you the truth, you laughed at me." The room went quiet. Outside, I could hear kids laughing and playing somewhere down the street. Normal families living normal lives. It felt like noise from a different universe. "What do you want from us?" Stephanie asked at last. "I don't want anything," I said. "That ship sailed. There has to be something," Nicole insisted. "Some way to fix this." "Fix what?" I asked. "Your marriages? Your friendships? Your reputations? Some things don't get fixed. Some mistakes come with permanent damage." "So that's it?" Amanda asked. "You're just going to let our families fall apart?" "I'm not letting anything happen," I replied. "This was already happening. I just sped it up." "You could have given us time to work things out with our husbands," Stephanie said. "The way you were given time with Lauren. That stopped them cold." We sat there in silence for several minutes, the weight of everything settling in. Finally, Amanda spoke. "Chris wants to try counseling. He says he'll do whatever it takes to save our marriage." "And Jason's begging me to take him back," Stephanie added. "He's promised total transparency. No more secrets. No more other women." "Good," I said. "Maybe they mean it. Maybe they've learned something." "Do you think," Nicole started, then hesitated. "Do you think there's any real chance? For them, for any of us?" I thought about Chris Alvarez and Jason Reed, serial cheaters who'd only shown remorse once they were caught red-handed. But people could change. Sometimes. I don't know, I said honestly. That's something you'll have to decide with them. But if you try, do it with your eyes open. No more pretending. No more choosing comfortable lies over ugly truths. What about you and Lauren? Stephanie asked softly. Are you going to try to save your marriage? I thought about the woman I'd married, the woman she used to be, and the stranger she'd become. The lies, the betrayal, the complete collapse of trust. No, I said. Some things are too broken to fix. They left a few minutes later, looking hollow and lost. I watched them walk to their cars. Nicole's spotless SUV, Amanda's sensible sedan, Stephanie's beat-up minivan, and wondered if they'd ever be friends again. Probably not. Trust, once shattered, was almost impossible to rebuild. I went back to the grill, but the burgers were burned beyond saving, kind of like everything else in my life lately. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. We need to meet tonight. It's important. Lauren. After everything that had happened, after all the damage she'd caused, now she wanted to talk. I texted back. Denny's on Route 9. 1 hour. It was time to end this. Denny's at 9 p.m. on a Thursday was exactly what you'd expect. Half empty, harsh fluorescent lighting, and deeply depressing. Perfect. Lauren was already there, sitting in a corner booth with her back against the wall. She looked awful. Pale. Exhausted. Wearing the same clothes as yesterday. For someone who'd always taken pride in her appearance, the change was jarring. You look like hell, I said, sliding into the booth across from her. Thanks, she said flatly. You look great too. The waitress came by, and we ordered coffee. Neither of us was hungry. We just needed something to do with our hands. So, I said once we were alone again. Here we are. Here we are, she echoed. You said this was important. She nodded, wrapping both hands around her mug like it was the only thing holding her steady. I signed everything. All the papers. I'm not contesting the divorce. Smart choice. I also cleaned out my desk today, she added. I'm taking an indefinite leave of absence. I raised an eyebrow. Voluntarily? Let's just say my boss and I had a conversation about my future, she said. We both agreed some time away would be best for everyone. So someone had talked. Maybe a subordinate finally spoke up. Maybe the rumors reached the right ears. Either way, her career was done. Where are you staying? I asked. Extended stay America off the highway, she said bitterly. Real glamorous. And Chris? Jason? Anyone? She let out a short, hollow laugh. What friends? Chris won't even return my calls, Lauren said. Amanda's got him locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Jason's too busy groveling at Stephanie's feet to even pretend I exist anymore. And everyone else. Let's just say I'm not exactly popular right now. Shocking, I said dryly. Don't, she snapped. Don't sit there and act like you're innocent in all of this. I never said I was innocent, I replied. But I didn't cheat on you with multiple people. I didn't lie to you for months on end. And I sure as hell didn't recruit your friends to help publicly humiliate you. You destroyed my life, she said quietly. No, I corrected. I exposed the life you were already living. There's a difference. She stared at me across the table, and for just a second, I saw her, the woman I'd married. Vulnerable. Lost. Looking for somewhere else to put the blame. Why? She asked softly. Why did you have to make it public? Why couldn't you just file for divorce quietly and let us both move on? Because you didn't give me that choice, I said. You turned our marriage into a public spectacle first. You pulled people into it who had no business being involved. You tried to humiliate me in front of your friends. I was scared, she whispered. I didn't know how to tell you I wasn't happy, that I hadn't been happy for a long time. So instead, you cheated, I said. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she replied quickly. It started with Chris. We were both at that conference in Albany. We'd been drinking, and it just happened. She paused, then continued. I felt awful afterward. Guilty. But at the same time, I felt alive. Like I was finally doing something for myself instead of just sleepwalking through life. And then came Jason, I said. She nodded. Chris introduced us. He said Jason was discreet, that he understood the situation. It felt safe, like we were all in the same boat. What boat was that? I asked. The cheating boat, I said flatly. She flinched. We were all miserable in our marriages, she said. All looking for something we weren't getting at home. Then why not just get divorced? I asked. Why all the lies? Why the elaborate cover-ups? Because I was a coward, she said without hesitation. Divorce is ugly and expensive in public. Affairs were easy, exciting, private, or at least I thought they were. We sat there quietly for a few minutes. Around us, the diner buzzed with low conversation and the clinking of dishes. "Do you hate me?" she asked finally. I thought about it. "I was angry," I said. "No question about that. I was hurt, deeply. But hate? No, I don't hate you. I'm disappointed in you. I'm furious about what you did. But I don't hate you." "Do you think you could ever forgive me?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday. But not now. And not anytime soon." "What if I got help?" she pressed. "What if I went to therapy and figured out why I did this? Made sure it never happened again?" "It's too late, Lauren," I said. "The trust is gone. Even if you turned into a completely different person tomorrow, I'd still see what you did every time I looked at you." Tears slid down her face. "So that's it," she said. 8 years of marriage, just gone. It ended the moment you decided to cheat," I said quietly. "Everything after that was just cleanup." "I loved you," she said. "I know it doesn't look like it, but I did." "Maybe you did," I replied. "But you loved the excitement more. The secrecy, the thrill of sneaking around and living a double life. And that's not something I can compete with." The waitress refilled our cups, giving us both a moment to pull ourselves together. "What happens now?" Lauren asked. "Now we get divorced," I said. "You move forward with your life. I move forward with mine. Hopefully we learn something from all this and don't repeat it." "Will you tell people why we're divorcing?" she asked. "I won't volunteer it," I said. "But if someone asks me directly, I'm not going to lie to protect you." She nodded, accepting it. "What about Amanda and Stephanie?" she asked. "Nicole? They all hate me now. They think I destroyed their marriages." "Their marriages were already broken," I said. "They just didn't know it yet." "That's not fair," she argued. "Chris and Jason were cheating anyway. I didn't force them." "No," I said, "but you didn't stop them either. And you didn't think about what it would do to their wives." She sighed. "You're right. But you're not married to them. You didn't owe them anything." "I owed you loyalty," I said, "and you chose not to return it." She finished her coffee and stood up. "I should go?" She hesitated like she wanted to say more, then thought better of it and walked away. I watched her leave, noticing how small and worn down she looked. It should have felt like a win. After everything she put me through, seeing her like that should have been satisfying. Instead, it just felt hollow. I paid the check and drove home to an empty house. Tomorrow, I'd start rebuilding. I'd figure out what came next, how to move forward, how to trust again someday. But that night, all I wanted to do was sit in my living room and grieve the death of my marriage. 3 months later, Lauren came by to collect the last of her things. The divorce had gone through, quick and clean, just like she promised. She looked different, thinner, quieter, more grounded. She told me she was in therapy now, working a lower-level marketing job in Albany, trying to rebuild her life from scratch. I told her I was doing better than okay. We both apologized in our own ways, acknowledging that we needed to learn who we were on our own. Then she drove away without looking back. For the first time, the house felt like mine, not ours. Life kept moving. The old friend group completely collapsed. Amanda and Chris went to counseling, trying to rebuild something that would never be the same. Stephanie eventually divorced Jason after uncovering years of affairs. Nicole turned the entire disaster into blog content and lost her friendships along the way. At Murphy's Pub, I told Mike and the guys I wasn't ready to date yet. I needed time to figure out who I was as a single man. Later, Jason called me out of the blue, apologizing and asking how to live with being the cheater on the other side of the fallout. I told him the truth. "You don't fix broken trust," I said. "You accept the consequences, do the work, and maybe, earn trust again someday. Just probably not from Stephanie." Slowly, piece by piece, anger gave way to peace. Mrs. Keller next door reminded me my marriage didn't fail because I wasn't enough, but because Lauren chose deception and warned me not to let her choices make me afraid to trust again. Months later, Amanda apologized at the grocery store and said I'd been right about comfortable lies versus uncomfortable truths. She told me I deserve to be happy. Maybe someday I'll believe that enough to risk dating again. For now, poker nights with friends, a quiet, honest house, and the simple feeling of sleeping without suspicion are enough. I lost a marriage, but I got something just as important back.